I haven't had many opportunities to do these recently, so they might have all stacked up. But I'm going to get them done now. I'm going to get a few done now. And I'm also not having that many great ideas anyway. I'm also very tired. I'm very tired, Ollie. I'm just tired. I just want to go back to sleep, like. Yeah, the last one I think probably might have been muffled and by the surrounding noises, but I can't really be bothered to do it again. So if it had all my greatest ideas and they're all inaudible, well, that's life. I mean, they were kind of inaudible in the sense that they're never going to be listened to, so what does it matter? Let's just rattle through these. To follow up on my defence of quantum determinism, surely the uncertainty principle doesn't oh, fuck's sake. Surely the uncertainty principle doesn't imply that the universe has to be uncertain, just that we are. Right? Wrong? Probably? Oh, great. Name determines personality. Oh, this was an idea. I remember this was an idea I had when I was a kid, right? And I was wondering if they'd ever done any... I guess I could find out if I just fucking Googled it. But I wonder if anyone's ever done a kind of test or an experiment. Would be nicer. To see if people's names play any part in determining their personality, right? And I guess the only way... Well... what I was thinking about more was if you can... no. Okay, yeah, that's what I want to know. But the way that I thought about doing it as a kid, thought about actually conducting the experiment would be to kind of get people to interact with other people for a while without revealing their names. And then maybe either give them multiple choices of names and then see how often they get it right. Maybe that kind of does it, but it has a few... you need a few controls. And then you're basically looking to see whether people are able to work out what someone's name is from their personality. So yeah, just curious about it, you see. I think when you understand my case for self-interest theory / ethical egoism / whatever, Ollieism, let's say, you realise it's true simply because how funny it is that you could ever think otherwise. Once you try to think of anyone... Oh, this was a terrible one. I just had a terrible ending. I just completely lost it. Once you try to think of anyone doing anything that didn't ultimately, at some level, satisfy them in some way and gave them some feeling that they desired, you realise how absurd it is to think that anyone could ever behave otherwise. Imagine a person who hates homeless people. Oh, this was just the worst example. I just fucked this right up. Imagine a person who hates homeless people. He just hates them. Every time he sees a homeless person, he thinks to himself, oh, Jesus, here's another one. Ugh, why do you have to be so dirty? I mean... I get you don't have access to clean water and protection from the elements, or a nice full wardrobe, but have some self-respect. Make an effort, geez. That kind of person. Went a bit in-depth there. And then this very same person giving this homeless person some money, and walking away going, ugh, why the hell did I just give that homeless person money? He really doesn't deserve that money. What a waste. You see, it's entirely possible for the first two elements of that story to be true. A person can hate homeless people, or any person, people, thing, or concept, and still act as if they don't. But they can't actually hate something. Act as though they don't hate it, and not actually hate it. That got a bit tangled in the end. Oh well, right, that really did. What I'm getting at is that person there. I think it's possible for someone to think that a person who hates homeless people would give them money and actually hate them. Oh god, I really messed the fucking example up. Wasn't even it? Anyway, but the reason they would give. I don't think they'd ever do it if they didn't feel they were getting recognised for it. If there was no chance of them. Oh man, I can't be bothered with this one. But you only ever do anything because there's something in it for you at some level. Okay. And obviously some of it can be, so that person, that was just the terrible example, there may be no one around. He may truly, at the bottom of, to the highest degree, hate homeless people, and yet still be able to give a homeless person money, and feel that he doesn't deserve it, but still do it, because he may have some kind of internalized conscience type person. His conscience can be something that, well, to satisfy one's conscience, even though obviously part of this conscience, you can have conflict in your conscience, and well, fuck's sake, I give up. But it satisfies him at some level. Okay. God, what a fucking load of bollocks. Something that's always annoyed me is when I'm watching a TV show, a comedy of some sort, obviously, and the comedian or actor, expressing the words of the writer, so really the writer, misses a joke. And the better the joke, the more I hate it. Now, this isn't going to be a great example, and of course now I wish I'd done this for the actual good ones. But the moment that just sparked this thought back into my mind was in the Louis C.K. Comedians in Cars episode. They saw a white bicycle representing someone who died on a bike, and Jerry said, "Sometimes it just doesn't work out." Sometimes it doesn't work out, I think. Anyway, which was kind of funny, but I think it needed one step extra. I pictured Louis saying, "I love that," because he was already kind of laughing at it in that way. Sometimes doesn't work out, not all the time, just sometimes. Can we just have a few normal bikes on the side? You know, once every other white bike. Oh, fuck's sake, this is so. You know, once every other white bike or so, just a normal bike saying, "Hey, nobody died on this one." Okay, that was. The delivery would need to be a bit different, but the words are right. The words. I wonder if this was a little secret of storytelling. I wonder if this was one of those little secret rules of storytelling, right? Always have more of the story. Always have more. Even at the end. Always have more. Always have more. I find a little thought about the equality of cultures. No one is defending gang culture. No one's going, I mean, I don't necessarily understand it, but... Right. Just the idea that maybe not all cultures are equal, you know? I think that's all moral relativism and all that, isn't it? Sam's gone a bit... Talked anti that before. His example was some kind of tribe that forces young men to inseminate. Oh, no, he doesn't. He made one up where every third child has to do something. I can't remember. Anyway, yeah, but no one's defending gang culture. You know, it's culture. It's got the word culture in it. You know, hey, all cultures are equal. Gang culture isn't equal. Mm. Being careful. Oh, see the end of that. He's funny guy. Acting in self-interest is not identical to, but highly correlated with acting in the interest of the preservation and but highly correlated with acting in the interest of the preservation and proliferation of genes. Archetypes mean that genes don't even need to be directly passed down through the germline, but simply influencing the archetypal model affects which genes are selected for in the population as a whole. Okay, I think that's basically what the idea of archetypes is. But whatever. Who gives a shit? Basically, if you act in line with what the archetypal story is for the era, you're likely to reap the rewards that are bestowed upon the archetypal hero, and that will probably be fulfilling in some self-interest oriented way. Oh God, there are loads of these. To follow up on happiness having to come from within, I don't think this implies that happiness can't be learned. I think happiness is most likely dependent on a state of mind, a way of perceiving the world and interpreting your surroundings and situations. I suppose the question that arises if this is the case, why don't I find Stoicism appealing? I guess I just don't think it's the most efficacious mindset. Non-positive sum games aren't inherently or implicitly good for their own sake. However, many are positive sum on a larger scale, bringing people together, learning new skills, building relationships, etc. So that's what I think. I don't think, because obviously my whole thing about good being symbiotic and positive sum, why would things like football, which are obviously, well, just generally team sports or sports in general. Well, racing sports are obviously negative sum for most people, and two team sports are just zero sum. So why would they succeed if they weren't so good and everything? But they're not good in their own sense. They're not positive sum in their own sense, obviously. Not symbiotic in their... Well, they're semi-symbiotic because of the teams dynamics. And also even in individual sports you have like a team of trainers and coaches and friends. But yeah, that's where the positive sumness comes into it, when you take into account the broad scale of socializings. Hang on. I'm becoming more inclined to the opinion that many of the emotions that we believe to be undesirable are actually very valuable and important social signals. Anger, for example. It sounds like I've heard this from somewhere, but I think I came up with it. Anger, for example. The Stoics appear to be pretty opposed to anger in almost all forms, but I'm not sure a world without anger would be as functional as the one we find ourselves in now. They're kind of like that, but not entirely like that. Anyway. Obviously, I'm not sure they deny what I'm saying. Obviously, there are many examples and occasions where anger is misplaced or misjudged, and perhaps a more precise understanding and use of anger would be better. I don't think complete eradication would be best, however. Before you read this book, this was a nice little prelude. If I were ever to write this book, I'd probably have this prelude to it. Before you read this book, I want you to be aware of one thing. I am a terrible writer. I know I am a terrible writer. I think and therefore write phonetically, so despite my complete understanding of the differences between all forms of your, there, and so on, when I am writing freely, as some might say in a state of flow, and subsequently writing my best, is when I am most likely to make a mistake. My awareness of my own writing inability, or disability I suppose, actually makes my writing worse. Someone who was ignorant of their poor writing would probably make do with their style and get what they wanted to say down. I, on the other hand, feel compelled, and cannot feel otherwise, to compensate for my deficiencies with overcomplicated turns of phrase and ill-placed vocabulary. That's I managed to make even that sound incredibly pretentious, don't I? Great, Ollie, great. But that's kind of what I'm saying in the thing, so I'm acknowledging it in the thing itself. I'm so great. I'm so fucking amazing. Oh my god. In the interest of transparency... this is nothing. I need to do that. Okay, right, great. Bye. Done. Goodbye.